If you are a fan of the action RPG genre and enjoy games such as the Diablo series, Last Epoch and Path of Exile, today I got another game for you that might have you interested. Undecember is an online ARPG with co-op features that's free to play on PC and mobile. This game comes with many similar features from other ARPGs, and if you've played one of them already, you'll feel at home in Undecember really quickly. If you've never played one of these games before, this could just be your introduction to this amazing genre. The game comes with various systems you typically find in ARPGs, which I found very easy to understand in this game compared to other titles, whilst also offering more freedom and being far more forgiving. Now, before I delve into my review today, I have to touch on the controversy surrounding this game. The game is labeled pay to win by many who played and reviewed it, and although that's not a complete false statement, I do feel like most of them came from a biased, subjective angle. The fact is, if it is online and there is a form of trade available, there is going to be a form of pay to win, whether that's through the systems the game created or one the players did. And Undecember is one that belongs to the former category. I'll delve into this topic a little more later in this review. Let's start with the new player experience. In your first 5 minutes of playing, you'll get a taste for what the different weapons and abilities feel like later in the game. This can help you decide whether you want to play as a mage, ranger, bruiser or something else. Whilst getting a taste of this, you are also greeted by the cinematics and voice acting within the game. And I have to say, there is a lot of it and it feels complete. From all the games I've recently played, Undecember has the most cinematics and voice acting by far, and with that, it has a story worth exploring. In fact, another noticeable thing about the new player experience was that I didn't feel like putting on a second form of content, such as a series or music, whilst playing the game. You'll find that the various contents within the game that should immerse you are done well and make for a pleasant experience. A final thing I wish to mention here is that it feels refreshing to progress throughout the different acts the game has, as each one of them feels unique in various ways. Each act I played made for unique environments, but also had their own character login screens. What I didn't like too much at the beginning was the difficulty of Act 1 and Act 2, which were both extremely easy and made it feel like I didn't have to do anything other than walk and click my way through them. I don't like it when games have an easy start, as it takes away from the overall experience you have as a player. Once you are done playing any game, all you are left with is a memory of it, and if the start of it is designed in such a way, it won't become something memorable. In fact, an overly easy designed start could even prevent people from exploring the game in the first place. Another thing that made for an unpleasant experience early on was that something felt off. Now, I went in blind without looking up a single thing about this game, so I didn't even know it was available on and designed for mobile. And that was pretty much that feeling I couldn't put my finger on. The good thing about this is that the PC UI design is pretty decent, as you don't immediately recognize it's mobile first. The bad thing is that eventually it becomes apparent that it is indeed designed for mobile, as it features a lot of obnoxious design choices a PC-only player doesn't want to experience. Things such as a bunch of random stuff you have to claim multiple times on a daily basis, or having to go through multiple windows to get a single task done. After the easy and boring start in the first two acts, things become more interesting starting Act 3, as your character's strength finally becomes important. This starts with your equipment, in which you can equip various items, which each have their own stats and requirements. The game features a classless system in which you can equip whatever you want as long as you meet the item's requirements. To meet those requirements, you get stat points every time you level up, which you can use in the Zodiac window. These stats are strength, dexterity and intelligence. So if you want to wear plate armor, you'll have to invest in strength, and if you want to wear leather armor, you'll have to invest in dexterity. And the same goes for the weapons and abilities, in which sometimes they will require multiple stats. Another thing you will find in the Zodiac window are your Zodiac traits, which simply are your character's passives. As you level up and progress, you also get Zodiac trait points, which you can spend here to make your character stronger through various passives and specializations. The great thing about the Zodiac system is that you can easily reset your stats and traits, which gives you the room to try different things out to see what works for you and what you enjoy. Aside from equipment and passive abilities, you also have your skills, which are done through a pretty unique and interesting system. On your rune board, you can slot the runes you wish to use and link them to one another to make them even more powerful. This allows you to fully customize your character's abilities and allows for personalized gameplay. So if you want to play a more tanky bruiser that teleports around, that's one of the many unregular options that are possible. Let's move on to itemization and RNG. There is a huge item grind in Undecember, as there is an extreme amount of RNG involved. Once you acquire an item you wish to use, you have to enchant it, and herein lies multiple levels of RNG. This game, unlike many other games, doesn't allow you to hoard your materials for late game, but rather is designed in such a way that you have to use the different RNG systems to progress starting Act 3. That was a pretty notable thing, and one I surprisingly liked. It felt like I actually had to use the various resources I acquired in order to progress, and that the systems were a part of the journey and not just a thing of endgame. I vividly remember struggling with the Act 5 boss, as I was pretty much getting one shot within a matter of seconds, which I fixed by enchanting my gear to contain a maxed out resistance towards cold damage. Although I still had to learn about the boss's mechanics and wiped a few times more, at least now I had the ability to tank some of the damage, which created the space to study this encounter. Another thing I really liked about itemization in Undecember are the item drops in general. Where in Path of Exile and Last Epoch you filter out 90% of the items that drop, in Undecember you can salvage items to get materials in return, making all the items that drop worth something and worth picking up. RNG is a big thing in this game and a huge part of your grind. It takes place on equipment in the form of rarity, amount of extra options, option types, value of set options, and more. When it comes to gems, think of things such as the amount of links they have and the colors of the links. Aside from grinding for the RNG systems to get the perfect stats through them, there is also a huge grind to upgrade your items to higher levels. And of course, RNG initially starts with item drops, which means you have to love farming. When it comes to bosses in Undecember, they make for a very good talking point, and it's even one where the discussion of actual pay to win begins. There are times I loved the bosses in this game, and times I absolutely hated them. The act bosses are unique and challenging with great designs and make for a great difficulty and experience. These are the bosses you'll remember and gladly spend time on to learn about their mechanics before you defeat them. Throughout each act, you also have multiple campaign bosses, which I often found extremely tedious. They would typically have very boring mechanics that were extremely punishing, and other times they would have RNG mechanics that would one-shot you. Overall, they just felt like a huge waste of time and a big source of frustration. The kicker is that these bosses also served as a gear and progression check and blocked you from continuing the main story. Even if you don't die to these bosses within a matter of seconds, if you don't have enough damage, you'll spend half an hour killing them, which gives a lot of room for error. I wish I was kidding, but they were the sole reason I'd go back to town to upgrade my items, or simply consider myself done with the game for the day, as it just felt obnoxious to wipe 20 times over against these overtuned, boring and frustrating bosses that consumed so much of my time. Overall, I feel indifferent about the bossing experience in Undecember, as the bosses that are lackluster are literally on one side of the line and the outstanding bosses are on the other side of it. I think it's simply stupid of the developers to create such a varying experience within boss encounters, as you have some that are truly outstanding and some that are outright terrible. But this stupid decision is actually by design. It's basically where the true pay to win of this game starts unfolding, which I will explain later in this video. Moving on to quality of life, Undecember does something I wish other ARPGs did as well, which is having an auto loot system. In this game you can rent pets which will automatically pick up all of your loot, which allows you to focus on what's important, killing stuff. These pets also come with other features, such as allowing you to salvage and sell items from a distance, which cuts away from the time you need to spend in town. This quality of life feature, however, is locked behind diamonds and rubies, which are premium currencies. Another notable quality of life feature in Undecember is the automatic use of potions that you can set up to your wishes. Now I know this is a very mobile-like feature, but it was nice to think less about potions for once in an ARPG like this. There are also a couple things I didn't like in the quality of life section of this game. First of all, crafting potions takes a huge amount of time. I don't get this design choice, as the game is literally telling you to get off and do something else instead of play. Lucky for you, you can spend premium currency to bypass the timer. I think we can all agree this is an extremely lame design choice. The second thing is that you can't use materials from your bank. You have to physically take items with you whenever you wish to use them. There is, however, a premium tab you can purchase for real money, which unlocks this feature. Not the biggest problem in my opinion, but it would be nicer if this wasn't behind the paywall. So before I move to the summary of pros and cons of this game, let's go over to the big question. Is Undecember pay to win? In Undecember you can buy diamonds from the cash shop for real life currency and exchange these for rubies. There is an auction house within the game that fully functions on the ruby currency. So if you wish to buy or sell anything, you have to use this currency. That's the direct conversion of real money. This allows players to buy whatever is listed on the auction house for real money. But this also means that a free-to-play player can list and sell their items for rubies and acquire this premium currency without spending anything on the game themselves. If you consider buying gear for real-life currency pay to win, you already have your answer. Personally, I don't care much for the auction house and the fact that players can buy items for money. In any online game with a trade system that doesn't have an auction house like Undecember, there is simply an RMT scene, which is real money trade outside of the game. The fact people can buy items for real money in an online video games where trade is possible simply doesn't change. If this unpleasant reality of online gaming bothers you, perhaps you should consider if you enjoy these games at all, or if you are simply addicted to their designs. In my opinion, pay to win becomes an issue when you can't experience the game's journey to its fullest without paying, or when the competition within the game plays a key role in gameplay experience and is influenced by real currency. If you take a game such as Albion Online, in which you can buy the best gear for real currency, and then take said gear to compete against others in filled loot areas, that's when pay to win becomes an issue. In Undecember, currently the competition is limited to a ranking board where you can see the top players, so unless you really want to be at the top of that list for whatever reason, the fact there is such an auction house within the game is not going to matter. Although I saw players in towns from time to time, the online features of this game were a non-factor within my overall experience. Therefore, I couldn't care less about what others do and how they rank against each other either. That is not to say that real currency in Undecember doesn't have any value. If you plan to play the game long term and wish to have a proper time, you'll have to spend at least some money to get things like more storage, as they are only purchasable with diamonds. It's important to note that these task tabs are not a requirement, but they will add to your quality of life and make your life easier as you approach the end game. I don't think this is the biggest issue, because it's only fair that you spend some money on a game you get hours of entertainment from, and it's basically what Path of Exile does, and no one seems to bat an eye to this type of monetization there either. Aside from permanent unlocks that require money, there are also timed subscriptions. These are the pet system and the so-called Zodiac Walker. The pet system is a huge quality of life addition, as it saves you a lot of time and makes for a better gameplay experience. Although other popular ARPGs don't have this feature, it's one I would gladly pay for in any one of them. Also, you can activate the pets with rubies, so even if you are a free-to-play player, you can still upkeep your pets by selling items on the auction house. Therefore, the pet system is not a pay-to-win feature and not one that is required by any means. It's simply quality of life locked behind premium currency. Now here is the part where the pay-to-win within Undecember plays the biggest role: resurrection scrolls. These items allow you to succeed in something you would otherwise fail at, which is against the whole spirit of gaming. Combine that with bosses that are super overtuned with huge HP pools and RNG mechanics, and you'll be using these items like sugar in cake. Especially when these bosses are blockades throughout the campaign that make for unpleasant experiences and have no real meaning other than wasting your time. The majority of the boss designs in this game are simply designed poorly on purpose for you to get frustrated and pay your way through them. From my understanding, the Zodiac Walker subscription provides you with a bunch of daily resurrection scrolls. Although you can also obtain these scrolls as a free-to-play player, your daily amount will be limited to just a couple, which is not nearly enough. And since the Zodiac Walker subscription is locked behind real currency, combined with ridiculous boss mechanics where they pretty much become a requirement, it's the one pay-to-win feature that feels completely absurd. So what are the good things about Undecember? First of all, the game has a ton of cinematics and voice acting which are of good quality. Each act also feels unique and refreshing due to complete new environments with some extra elements such as unique character login screens. All of this combined makes for a story worth exploring. The gameplay feels smooth and immersive, and the graphics are nice as well. The pet system, and with that auto looting, although locked behind premium currency, is something I wish more ARPGs had. Another thing I really liked is that you need to use the different character progression systems early on, and you don't get to hoard everything you got for the end game. On that note, everything that drops has value because you can salvage your items for materials. And finally, the game is easy to understand and is very friendly to new players to the ARPG genre. Not only because of its systems that are easy to use, but also because the systems are forgiving in that you can reset your traits and stats. Combine that with the classless system and a big level of customization, and you can try out a bunch of different things on a single character. As for the bad things in Undecember, I have to start with the boss designs. Although some of them are truly outstanding, the majority are designed unethically. This is what ruins the overall experience the most, and this is also where pay to win truly becomes a factor. The first 2 acts of the game are extremely easy and feel off-putting. You really need to push through the first couple hours to finally get to a point where the game becomes interesting. Once things do get more interesting, with every act you advance, you'll have to grind more, not just for levels, but also for the right stats on your items. I won't list the big grind as a pro or con, as it's simply expected from these games, but if you don't like huge RNG systems, this game might not be for you. Something I haven't mentioned yet, which I do for the first time now, and something that was extremely annoying, was unit collision. You can't walk through the mobs in Undecember, which is something I really hated. Mobile first design shows in multiple areas of the game, and I personally got sick of all the alerts and things I had to claim all the time really quickly. It's not something game breaking, but it's simply super annoying. So is Undecember a game worth playing? I think the game suffers heavily because of the personal bias many reviews had, in which they blew up the whole pay to win topic and made it far bigger than it actually is. It's not nearly as bad as most of them make it out to be. Because of this, they also ignored a lot of the things that are good and interesting about the game that do make for a good ARPG experience, especially if you are new to the genre. Are there certain design choices that feel unethical in this game? Sure. Can you directly buy gear for real money? Yes, you can. Are these things that would make me say, don't try this game out? Not at all. I do think you'll have a pretty fun time in Undecember if you decide to give it a go. As I need to move on to the next game so I can continue reviewing stuff, I do wish I could spend even more time in Undecember and see what else the game has to offer. I went in blind and didn't spend anything, and had a pretty good time overall, which would have been an amazing time if not for some of the frustrating bosses. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like for the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe to my channel for more content just like this. Also, let me know what you think of Undecember in the comments below, as I would love to hear what others have to say about this game. My name is Levi, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.